A mile and a half beneath the waves, there is no light at all. None. The sun has never once touched this place, and yet there, in the total black, a single tiny spark begins to glow. A soft, cold, greenish light, drifting alone in the dark, and something small and hungry turns and begins to swim toward it. But that light is not a rescue, and it is not a friend. It is bait. What it is attached to is one of the most nightmarish animals on the planet, and I promise you, the way this creature finds love is somehow even more disturbing than the way it kills. And no, I am not exaggerating for effect. In a few minutes, I am going to show you a male of this species who will find a female, bite down on her body, and then slowly, deliberately dissolve his eyes, his fins, his heart, everything that made him a separate animal, until there is nothing left of him but a lump of flesh fused to her side, kept alive for one purpose only. Stay with me, because this is the deep-sea anglerfish, and almost nothing about it plays by the rules that the rest of life on Earth agreed to. Start with where it lives, because that explains everything else. This is the midnight zone, a mile or more straight down, in the open ocean. The last trace of sunlight gave out far above. Down here it is permanently, absolutely black. The water is just above freezing. The pressure would crush a submarine, and there is almost nothing to eat. A thin, endless snow of dead scraps drifting down from the sunlit world so far overhead. It is one of the largest living spaces on the planet, and one of the emptiest. To survive here at all, you cannot afford to waste a single heartbeat of energy. And the anglerfish has built its entire body around that one brutal rule.
So look at the female, because she is the one you picture when you hear the name. She is a dark, round, floating mouth. She barely swims. Movement costs energy. She cannot spare, so mostly she just hangs there in the black, waiting. And rising up from her forehead is the strangest tool in the ocean, a long, thin stalk, like a fishing rod grown out of her own skull, with a little glowing bulb dangling at the tip.
That glow is a living lantern. The bulb is packed with billions of bacteria that make their own light, and she farms them there, on the end of her rod, right in front of her enormous mouth.
Think about how clever, how cruel that is.
In a world of total darkness, light is the rarest, most magnetic thing there is. Anything alive down here is desperate for it. So the anglerfish takes the one thing every creature in the abyss is drawn to, and turns light into a trap. She dangles her lantern, and she waits. And sooner or later, something curious, something hungry, comes to investigate that lonely little glow. And by the time it realizes the light is growing out of a monster, it is already too late. Because that mouth is a horror in its own right. It is huge, often bigger than the rest of her body, and it is filled with long, thin, glassy teeth like needles, all angled inward, so that anything that goes in can never claw its way back out. Her jaw and her stomach can stretch to an incredible degree. An anglerfish can swallow prey larger than herself, whole. She does not hunt by chasing. She cannot afford to. She hunts by being a patient trap with a beautiful light and letting the darkness and the hunger of others do the rest. For a moment, just picture her out there. One dark shape, motionless, in a mile of black water, with a single point of soft light glowing in front of her teeth. Nothing else for miles in any direction. Just that one small lantern, burning alone in the deepest night on Earth. And that emptiness is not just her hunting ground, it is also the single biggest problem in her life. Because it is not just food that is almost impossible to find down here. It is another anglerfish. Imagine the size of that black, three-dimensional ocean, and imagine how few of your own kind are scattered through it. You could swim in a straight line for your entire life and never once cross paths with a mate. For most animals, that would be the end of the story, a dead end. But the anglerfish came up with an answer to that loneliness so extreme that when scientists first pieced it together, they could hardly believe it. Here is the answer, and to see it, you have to meet the male, because the male anglerfish is nothing like the female. He is tiny. In some species, he is a fraction of her size, as little as 1/60th of her length, a small dark speck next to her bulk. He has no glowing lure. He is a weak swimmer. He barely has a working gut. He is frankly not built to survive on his own for long at all, but he has two things developed to an extraordinary degree: enormous eyes and huge sensitive nostrils. Because the male is not built to hunt, he is built to do exactly one thing: to find her He drifts through the endless black, following the faint chemical trail of a female's scent, searching on a countdown for the one signal that matters. And when he finally finds her, after a search across that vast dark desert, he does not court her. He bites her. He clamps his little jaws onto her body and holds on. And then the truly astonishing thing begins. His mouth begins to fuse to her skin. Their tissues grow together. Their blood vessels join until his bloodstream and hers become one. And the moment that connection is complete, the male stops being a separate creature at all. He no longer needs to see, so his eyes wither away and vanish. He no longer needs to swim, so his fins shrink and dissolve. His organs, one by one, break down and disappear because he no longer needs them. Her body will do all of that for him now. Everything he was melts away until all that remains hanging off her side is a small lump of flesh and a pair of reproductive organs fed by her blood, ready to fertilize her eggs the instant she is ready to spawn. Scientists call it sexual parasitism. He has given up his entire body, his whole separate existence, to become a permanent living part of her, and she can carry more than one. It is not unusual to find a female drifting through the dark with several of these dissolved males fused to her at once, a small permanent harem of former suitors melted into her flesh, each one waiting for the day she needs him. If a creature that fishes with a living lantern and whose males dissolve into their mates is the kind of impossible animal you want more of, do me a quick favor and subscribe. There is a new wild survival story here every single week, because there is one last twist to this, and it is the part that genuinely stuns the scientists who study it. At first, the fusion sounds purely like a horror story, but step back, and it is actually a brilliant solution to an impossible problem. When your mate is a single needle in the largest, darkest haystack in the universe, the worst thing you could possibly do is find that needle, and then let go of it. So the male never lets go. He makes sure he can never be lost again. By becoming a part of her body, she, in turn, never has to spend her precious energy searching for a mate. She carries one, or several, with her always permanently on tap. The loneliest animals in the largest desert on Earth solved the problem of ever being alone by refusing physically to ever be separate again. But here is the part that should not be possible. For two animals to fuse their tissues and merge their blood like that, the female's body should attack him. Your immune system is built to violently reject any foreign flesh that tries to join with your own. It is exactly why the human body fights so hard against a transplanted organ, and why we need powerful drugs to stop it. By every rule we know she should reject him. She doesn't. And when researchers looked closely, they found something staggering. The anglerfish has quietly switched off core parts of the very immune system that every other backboned animal on Earth relies on to defend itself. To solve loneliness, this creature dismantled the body's oldest defense and somehow survives just fine without it. We are studying these fish right now to understand our own immune systems and the transplants we so badly want our bodies to accept. Somewhere in that endless black, right now, a female is drifting, slow and patient and utterly alone, except for the shrunken male, or males, dissolved into her side, and the soft glow of a lantern she will never stop carrying. She will never have to search again. So think back to that first tiny spark of light, the one drifting in the dark at the very beginning. It was never a star, it was never a friend, and it was never a rescue. It was a lure on a monster that lives its whole life in a night that never ends. A creature that took the only light in its world and made it a weapon, and took the idea of finding a partner and made it literal and permanent and total. In the coldest, blackest, emptiest place on the entire planet, life did not give up, and it did not stay simple. It got stranger and more desperate and more astonishing than anything we ever imagined down there in the dark. So if this strange, unsettling little story got under your skin, subscribe. There is a new wild survival story here every week. And be honest with me down in the comments. We like to say that love is finding the right one and holding on. Down there in the dark, an animal took that completely literally. It holds on until there is nothing left of itself to hold on with. Faced with a lifetime of absolute darkness and the near certainty of being alone forever, would you disappear entirely into someone else? Give up your eyes and your body and your very self if it was the only way you would never be alone again? Because somewhere a mile beneath you, in water that has never seen the sun, something already made that choice, and it would make it again tonight.